The paradox of pain, how suffering shapes us without our permission. Have you ever gone through something so difficult, so painful, so excruciatingly unfair that you thought, there's no way anything good can come from this? Maybe it was a loss, a heartbreak, a betrayal, a failure so massive it made you question your entire sense of self. We've all been there, or we will be. And in those moments, it feels like the world is collapsing inward. But what if I told you that inside every one of those moments, there's something hidden, a gift so powerful, so quietly transformative, that it could change everything about the way you live? This isn't about false positivity. This isn't everything happens for a reason slapped over your deepest wounds. This is philosophy, raw, real, and grounded in the tension of being human. And it begins with something called the Amara Effect. The Amara Effect is named after the lesser-known observation by futurist Roy Amara, who said, "We tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run." But here's the twist. This isn't just about technology. It's about everything, especially our pain. We overestimate how bad it will feel forever, and we underestimate what it's actually doing to us beneath the surface. The Amara Effect is the invisible transformation happening inside us while we suffer, one we can't see until much later. But here's the philosophical dilemma. How do we honor pain without romanticizing it? How do we see the gift without disrespecting the wound? That's what we're going to explore. Because if you stay with me, by the end of this video, you won't just be able to survive your struggles, you'll be able to mine them for something extraordinary.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let's start with something simple. Suffering is real. It's not a metaphor. It's not a test. It's not a puzzle to be solved. It's an experience, often chaotic, often cruel. But within that experience, something is always happening. Quietly, invisibly, your mind is reshaping. Your heart is recalibrating. Your understanding of the world is being rewritten. And you don't notice it until much later, until you look back and say, I'm not the same person anymore. This is what the Amara Effect reveals. Transformation is delayed. It doesn't show up in the moment of impact. It hides in the aftermath. And that delay is what makes suffering feel so pointless while we're in it. Because we're wired to seek immediate meaning. We want the lesson now. We want the purpose now. But life doesn't work that way. The most profound changes take time, and often they operate in silence. Let me ask you something deeply personal. What's the hardest thing you've ever been through, and are you still carrying it the same way you did when it first happened? For most of us, the answer is no. Something has shifted. Maybe you're more cautious. Maybe you're more empathetic. Maybe you've become someone who listens differently, loves differently, lives differently. That shift, that evolution is the Amara Effect in motion. And it's not just philosophical, it's biological. Your brain literally rewires itself after trauma. Your view of reality expands or contracts. You don't just get through the struggle, you're rewritten by it. But here's the problem. We're not taught to trust the delay. We're taught to fix, to escape, to numb. And in doing so, we often interrupt the very transformation pain was trying to offer. We want to fast forward to the part where we've healed. But healing isn't a highlight reel. It's a slow unfolding, a process that requires discomfort, patience, and an entirely different relationship with time. This is where philosophy gives us a powerful insight. Think of Nietzsche, yes, the God is dead guy. He also said, to live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. But here's the nuance people miss. Nietzsche wasn't saying there is meaning in all suffering. He was saying we create meaning from it. That's the difference. The gift in the struggle doesn't show up as a neatly wrapped lesson. It shows up as a choice to rebuild ourselves with deeper awareness, deeper strength, and deeper compassion. So what does that look like in real life? Say you lost someone you loved. The grief feels unbearable. You don't sleep. You don't eat. The world becomes surreal. And then, months later, You find yourself comforting a friend who just experienced their first real loss. And you know exactly what to say. You know how to sit with their silence. You know how to hold their pain. And suddenly you realize your pain gave you a language that can save someone else. That's not a coincidence. That's the Amara Effect. You didn't just survive the loss. You became someone who can hold loss. That's the unseen gift. Or maybe you failed spectacularly at school, at work, in love. You hit rock bottom, and now you're building something new, slower, more intentional. You're no longer chasing approval. You're no longer performing. Why? Because the collapse stripped away the illusions. It taught you what matters. And even though it hurt, maybe it freed you. Again, the gift wasn't in the suffering. It was in who you were becoming because of it. And this is where I want to challenge you. What if your current struggle is shaping a version of you that your future self will be grateful for? What if the pain you're in now is doing work you can't see yet? What if it's not the end of your story, but the beginning of a wiser, more grounded one? You see, we live in a culture obsessed with immediate results. We want instant purpose, instant growth, instant peace. But growth doesn't work like that. Peace doesn't work like that. The deepest truths emerge slowly, like roots growing underground. And if we don't learn to trust that process, we'll keep abandoning it before the transformation happens. So here's the takeaway. Struggle is not the enemy. It's not the punishment. It's not the sign that you're broken. It's the process. The slow, painful, necessary process of becoming real. And when you start to see that, when you stop expecting instant clarity and start honoring the delay, you unlock something extraordinary. You start to live with patience, with presence, with a kind of quiet power that no one can take from you. You begin to see your struggles not as detours, but as doorways. Not as signs of failure, but as invitations into depth, into truth, into the most authentic version of who you are. That's the Amara Effect, and it's happening right now even if you can't see it, especially if you can't see it. Pain doesn't ask for your consent. It doesn't knock politely at the door of your life and wait for you to be ready. It crashes in, uninvited, unannounced, and unapologetic, and yet, somehow, it begins to shape you, quietly, relentlessly, even when you resist it, even when you hate it. This is the paradox of pain. It transforms you whether you want it to or not. You can fight it, deny it, numb it, but you can't ignore the imprint it leaves. And maybe that's the secret we've never been taught. That pain is not just something to survive, but something that secretly sculpts us into who we were always becoming. We often imagine transformation as a choice, a deliberate journey, a conscious awakening. But the truth is, most of our becoming happens in the dark. In those moments when we're too tired to fight, too broken to pretend, too lost to keep performing. And it's there, in the rawness, the ruin, the silence, that we start to change. Not because we want to, but because we have to. Because the old version of us simply can't survive what we're walking through. So something new begins to form. A self that's quieter, stronger, wiser. Not because it read the right book or repeated the right affirmation, but because it endured. Here's what no one tells you. Suffering peels the layers off your life that were never really yours. The expectations, the roles, the masks. Pain has this brutal way of burning through illusion, and what's left is something closer to the truth. You discover who you are when everything else is stripped away. That's why people who've been through something real often carry a stillness in them, a depth, a presence you can't fake. They don't flinch at small talk. They don't chase empty things. And it's not because they're better than anyone, it's because they've seen something. They've touched the bottom and lived to speak from it. Let me ask you something that might echo in your mind for days. What part of you was born from a moment you thought would destroy you? Think about that. What strength, what insight, what compassion do you now carry because of a struggle you once begged the universe to take away? That's the paradox. The same event that broke you open also built something inside you. And no, it doesn't make the pain worth it. That's not the point. The point is that you grew anyway. That you didn't need the pain to be noble for it to be transformational. You just had to endure, and somehow you evolved. The Amara Effect, at its deepest level, is the long game of becoming. It's the ripple of transformation that pain sends out into your future, altering the way you love, listen, lead, and live. And it's invisible while it's happening. That's why it's so hard to trust it. We want signs, progress, proof. But real transformation is like a seed underground. It looks like nothing is happening, until suddenly, everything is. And maybe the most powerful question you can ask yourself in the middle of struggle isn't why is this happening to me, but what is this shaping inside me, without my permission, but maybe for my becoming? Why the hardest moments forge the brightest souls. There's a reason we're drawn to stories of people who've walked through fire and come out stronger. Not because we enjoy watching people suffer, but because there's something undeniably real about someone who's been burned and still chooses to shine. We can feel it in their voice, in their presence, in the way they look at the world, not with naive hope, but with earned wisdom. That kind of light doesn't come from comfort. It comes from confrontation, with fear, with grief, with the parts of ourselves we'd rather not meet. And that's the truth most of us don't want to face. The brightest souls are almost always forged in the very places we try to avoid. It's tempting to wish for an easy life, to pray for safety, predictability, and permanent happiness. But the people who inspire us, the ones who move us to tears or action, they didn't get there by avoiding struggle. They got there by standing in it, by learning to breathe inside the storm. And maybe that's the secret. We don't become who we are by being protected from life. We become who we are by walking through it, scarred, uncertain, and still saying yes, still showing up, still choosing to love, even when it hurts. But let's be clear, this isn't romanticizing pain. It's respecting it. There's nothing noble about suffering for its own sake. The dignity comes from what you do with it. Pain can break you, yes, but it can also break you open. And in that opening, something new can rise, a self that is not defined by what happened, but by how you choose to respond. That's what it means to become the flame. You don't just survive the darkness, you illuminate it, not for applause, not for revenge, but because you've discovered that your light is real, and it's not dependent on anyone else's permission. Think about the hardest moment of your life, not just the pain, but how it changed your perspective. How it shattered your illusions, how it made you look at people differently, love differently, value time differently. That shift, that rewiring of your soul, it didn't happen by accident. It happened because you endured something real. And maybe you didn't have a choice. Maybe the pain came without warning. But the way you responded, that was you. That was your fire being born. Let me ask you something very few people ever stop to ask themselves. What would your life look like if you honored your scars not as signs of weakness but as symbols of awakening? What if they weren't things to hide, but things to study, to learn from, to grow from? Every scar, emotional or physical, is a chapter that taught you something about resilience, about boundaries, about what matters. And when we ignore those lessons, we risk repeating the pain. But when we integrate them, we evolve. We become grounded. We become whole. The flame isn't about being fearless. It's about learning to move with your fear. It's about feeling the weight of the struggle and still choosing to rise, not because you're unbreakable, but because you're willing. Willing to face life as it is. Willing to grow even when it hurts. Willing to love even when you've been abandoned. That's the kind of strength the world needs. Not perfect people, not untouchable heroes, but real ones, people who've suffered, healed, stumbled, and still choose to stand and offer their light. So maybe the next time you find yourself in darkness, confused, broken, alone, you can remember this. The flame inside you doesn't go out just because you're struggling. It may flicker, it may dim, but it never disappears. And maybe, just maybe, that flicker is enough. Enough to keep going, enough to guide you forward, enough to remind you that even in your hardest moment, something inside you is still alive, still burning, still becoming.